By now you've probably realized something about photography, that perfect camera settings don't necessarily mean interesting photos. Your camera settings obviously make sure what you're photographing is sharp and well exposed and all that stuff, but it doesn't mean that what you've captured is actually interesting. Now, I am not the moral authority on what qualifies as an interesting photo or not. You and I are probably going to have a different taste on what that definition actually means. That's not the point here. The point is that I think we can all universally agree that no matter what you're trying to capture, we can sometimes come back and look at our photos and be like, that's just kind of boring, and we have no idea why or how to fix it. So I want to share with you a simple 3-part framework to fix this exact problem. A system that lets you pinpoint why a photo feels boring or lacks depth, and how you can solve it immediately, whether in the field or while editing your photos. We will be covering a lot, so I made a Flat Photos Fix field guide of everything covered here that's totally free in the description below to help you while you're out shooting, but more on that later. The first reason your photos can feel boring or flat is because they lack a clear subject. But before you roll your eyes and go, oh yeah, of course, obviously, stick with me, because I think a lot of us know this, but don't know this. Now, obviously, you first take a photo because there is something interesting you want to capture, but what about that scene are you specifically trying to make this photo about? Often when your photos are about everything, they're about nothing, and that's a recipe for a boring shot that lacks depth or interest. I think that this is the easiest way to understand a snapshot that anyone would take on their phone versus a more impactful and professional photo that I assume you are trying to capture. A snapshot tells you about everything in the scene in no particular order, while a photo that has depth and interest is one that is guiding you towards a very specific destination and excluding anything that doesn't matter, even if both photos are photographing the same subject. Now, there are many ways that you can do this, which is what step 2 is all about in this framework. But to make this concept more clear before we get there, let's go through some examples, because a subject can often kind of feel vague. If we're to erase from our minds the obvious subjects like a person in a photo or a grand mountain in the distance, what else about the obvious could be an interesting complementary subject that we might be overlooking? The largest and possibly less obvious answer to this is texture. Now, I don't mean like threads on your shirt texture, but more so how light and shadows or natural elements are creating interesting textures in a scene. One easy example could be an interesting texture in the sky. With this example, the photo is less about the sun going over the horizon and more about the texture of the clouds above. If we were to make this photo just about the sun, it's less interesting compared to the grander texture of the sky that complements that setting sun. Another example is this one, where you might say the mountain is the subject, when, in my opinion, the foreground texture on the hills are actually what make this photo interesting and were my intended subject when capturing the photo. The mountain in the back is secondary, complementing the main subject of the foreground hills. Now, some of you may be commenting right now, but Brandon, these photos aren't even the best photos in the world. I agree, but I'm just trying to give you simple examples of how textures play a larger role in helping our subjects seem more interesting than we realize. Now, where things get more complicated are in situations like this one, where you might argue that the subject is the climber. Now, that's largely true, but I feel he's the secondary subject to the much more interesting subject of the ice textures all around him. If we were to ignore all of those textures and just show the climber, it would be a pretty boring and flat photo. Yet with all of those ice textures added together, we have something a lot more interesting. So the point being, texture can come in many different forms and is almost universally interesting. They're a great piece to focus on or a way to complement another important subject in your frame. These textures can come in the form of waves or ice or light creating uneven shadows on an object. It could be cracks in a rock, flowers in a field, and so on. But if this still feels hard to identify when you're out shooting, ask yourself this simple question: why is this interesting to me? There is no right answer here, but try to pinpoint specifically what is grabbing your attention within the overall scene. In a landscape example, sure, a big grand view might be awesome, but there's likely more more to it that makes it feel so special while you're standing there. Like a big mountain might be pretty amazing to see, but in isolation, it's not that unique. So what you need to do is identify why you feel so compelled to take a photo of that said mountain. That usually gives you the first answer to help make your shot more interesting. For example, maybe a mountain feels so grand because of the perspective of something smaller below it. In this example, isolating the frame to just that contrast and scale immediately makes the photo feel more interesting than the one I took with no thought from my phone. Maybe a sunset feels so spectacular because of how it's lighting something else you look past in the middle of the day. That's something you'd want to then bring attention to. Maybe something is interesting specifically because of the lack of other interest around it, like this hilltop dyed in red in an otherwise boring scene. The point being, to capture a more interesting photo, think of your subject as less about just the point of interest and more about the surrounding textures and environment that make that person, object, or thing you're photographing feel interesting in that moment in relation to the overall environment that you're standing in. That will give you a major clue of what to frame up in your shot and include as a major part of your composition. But a specific subject alone and some textures isn't going to guarantee an interesting photo. We now must move on to step 2, which helps us isolate what's important from a photo versus what's not using rules of composition, but it's not as obvious as it sounds sometimes. So our next step towards an interesting photo is guiding our attention towards the details / subject / texture in the most streamlined way possible. As you likely already know, this is again called composition, how you frame different parts of a scene together to create an interesting photo. And there are a lot of rules for it, far too many to reasonably cover here or keep in your noggin while you're shooting. So I want to make this far easier with just 4 core rules that I have found most useful over the years to capture more interesting photos, in my opinion. These rules are light and dark, leading lines, negative space, and depth. You can use these individually or together. I'll run through them one by one in a super simple way, and then you can decide on your own what one feels most relevant to what you like shooting. Light and dark is a rule that's almost self-explanatory, using light and shadows to draw attention to what matters in a photo. Our eyes will be naturally drawn to a brighter area than we will a dark area. Ideally, what your photo is all about is either in that bright area or heavily contrasted by it. Obviously, in natural light, you're not going to control the sun, but you can control where you stand in relation to the sun to frame up your subjects and get different looks of shadows and light and dark. You can also wait longer in the day to take that same photo, waiting for when there's more clear light and dark in the overall environment, such as golden hour, as we all know. But this rule can still apply at midday, blue hour, or even at night if you get creative with it. The second rule is leading lines. These are basically any defined or subtle pathway that lead our eyes to a point of interest like the subject or just through the photo. These are used all the time in photography, especially with landscapes, since nature is full of these. A river is a leading line to a waterfall, a valley is a leading line to a mountain, a crack in the ice is a leading line to the background, the shoreline is the leading line to the grander view. These are great ways to pull your eye towards what matters in the photo. Third is negative space, which uses the lack of interesting things to isolate something specific. You'll see this often in street photography or anyone who likes minimalist style shooting, but it's an awesome way to make any photo feel a lot more artsy while also making your subject stand out. In terms of everyday life, think of a person framed against a pure blue sky, or water and clouds captured with a slow shutter to create smooth, textureless features that frame an important subject. Negative space helps make a subject interesting because it forces you to simplify things, usually in ways you wouldn't be able to notice the same way in just regular life. Now, lastly is one of my personal favorites when troubleshooting my boring photos, and that is depth. This is the intentional use of a clear foreground, midground, and background to tell the story of your scene and complement whatever your subject is. For many landscape photographers, this is kind of like the prerequisite before they take any image. Now, you may not like foreground elements in a photo, but the point is to consider how you can create layers in your photo that give your eyes more to sink into. Often trying to define clear layers of interest that take you back through the photo can add a lot of dimension that you wouldn't get otherwise. Now, are these all the rules of composition? Absolutely not. I didn't even mention the rule of thirds. How dare I? I've just limited it to these 4 for the sake of interesting photos because in my experience, these are the ones that I always come back to beyond the basics whenever I have a boring photo that I'm trying to troubleshoot. But to summarize so far, we've identified why a clear subject matters and how often the surrounding elements of a scene, such as textures, are what make a subject interesting in the first place. We then use compositional techniques to frame those elements we identify as interesting to draw our attention towards the subject. The subject should be the anchor of the photo. Everything else is secondary. If you look at your image and feel something other than your subject is grabbing your attention at first glance, you likely need to simplify things. Exclude anything that doesn't matter with those 4 rules that we just covered to help you do that. Now at this point, we've covered a lot, but have we transformed a boring and flat photo into something more interesting? Well, maybe, but there's one more piece to the puzzle, and that comes down to editing. Before we get there, remember to grab a copy of my free Flat Photos Fix field guide in the description below. It breaks down everything in this 3-part framework into actionable steps you can easily remember, reference, and take with you while you're shooting or to review while you edit. It's totally free when you sign up to my email list. Unsubscribe anytime. If you hate emails or you hate me, that's totally fine. I think you'll enjoy the guide regardless. Again, you can grab that in the description below. Now, once it comes time for editing, we can actually steal from artists to learn how to create the illusion of depth and interest. Oftentimes, artists, as in like painters, will use varied levels of contrast to give the perception of depth between something going further back in the photo. And often, an image can feel quite boring when it lacks that depth. In this photo here, all the colors are kind of the same. There's not really a ton of separation between the foreground and the background elements. So if we were to think of this like an artist, how are they going to add more depth into this? Well, they would probably add a lot less contrast to the background area to then make this foreground area pop a lot more. And then we're naturally going to have more depth and interest in the image because of that. Now, I know this is a landscape type photo, but this same concept applies to any style of photography with the help of masks and changing contrast. So the first thing we want to do is identify what areas we can further play up the depth in. In this case, we can already see that there's that natural lighter contrast in the back here. We know that that light is coming from this side just based on the light on the trees here. So let's go and play that up a lot more to make it feel like there's some dramatic separation. I'm using Lightroom in this case, so I'll just go to the masking panel and I'll choose the radial gradient, then click and drag out to create that gradient. Just adjust its size and angle as needed. Now I'll go and bring up the brightness. So I'll just bring up the exposure a little bit to add the feeling of light coming from there. I'll then increase the warmth of that to give that light a specific feel, also adding a bit of color to those foreground trees. And then finally, I'll bring down the black so we add a bit of contrast in there. So we have brightened things up, kept a bit of contrast, and we've added a specific light hue. But now we can make this mask pop a lot more by darkening opposite areas of the photo. So I'll create a new mask, I'll create a linear gradient, drag up along the bottom area this time, and you could bring down the exposure. But what I find a little bit better is actually going down to the curves adjustment, going to the white point and bringing down the white point and playing around with the black point, bringing that inwards to add a bit of contrast if needed. I find that this does a good job of darkening the photo without making the details look like totally lost necessarily. I just prefer this look. You could try the exposure slider instead as well. Then refining the mask as required, clicking back onto the radial gradient and updating those settings if you want a more punchy look. But now with this added, I feel like we could have even more separation in the background. So I'll create a new mask, this time with a brush. And for the settings of this brush, I'll just start by going back down to the curves. I'll brighten that white point by moving it over to the left a bit, and then I'll lift up that black point to wash out the exposure. Now we don't see anything here right now because we have not painted with our brush yet. So I'll just go ahead now and paint over any areas that we want to have this effect applied. Obviously, there's not much happening, so our effect is a little bit too low. I'll go and increase the white point a bit further. Now I can continue to paint around here like so, adding in that nice highlight as you prefer. Of course, this is all to taste, but now you can see how just after a few masks, this really changes the depth and interest of the photo. We didn't have to do much here. We're just accentuating what already exists, adding separation between our subject and the background using just different levels of contrast, having lighter, softer contrast for far away things, having darker, richer contrast for close things. And this is a great way to add a lot more depth and interest to the photo without having to do anything that fancy. So this can be used alongside the other two techniques, or is a great way to bring back to life any photos you feel are boring, but you've just had them stored on your hard drive for a long time. Definitely try this technique, and I think you'll be impressed by how much you can transform an otherwise flat photo. So I know we've covered a lot, so let's distill this into a simplified version. If your photo feels flat or boring, first ask, does my photo have a clear subject? If yes, am I incorporating unique elements or textures surrounding that subject to make the photo feel more compelling? If you still can't figure out what those things might be, ask yourself, why do I feel compelled to take this photo? Consider what surrounding things make you perceive this scene in front of you as interesting. Is it the scale of a view? What objects of contrasting size can you use to convey that scale? What's unique about the environment that you're in that makes something feel so special? How can you include that subtly in your photo? With those things identified, your job is to now align those elements with different rules of composition. Again, there are lots, but the ones that I frequently come back to are light and dark, leading lines, negative space, and depth, which is to establish a clear foreground, midground, and background. You can use any of these individually or together with any other combination of compositional rules that you can think of. All that matters is you have a clear way of structuring your photo so your eye lands on the subject and is complemented by the surrounding textures or lack of. But in many cases, these two things alone won't leave you with an interesting photo. This also assumes you think of these things while you're in the field and not dealing with the photo after you've taken it. So that's why we have some editing tricks to further solve this problem. In the example I gave, the composition wasn't exceptional by any standard, a completely mediocre and boring photo. Yet with selective masking, using contrast to create separation between elements in the photo, it suddenly feels a lot more impactful and like it has depth. A photo you could maybe consider interesting now, especially compared to the original. How much you edit your photo is totally personal preference. My favorite color is blue, yours might be red. We can disagree on the editing, but this is art and not a math test with absolutes. Create whatever version of art feels right to you and your editing and your photography, or if you don't want to edit at all and that's what you prefer, all good. But with this 3-part framework, you can more easily pinpoint why a photo feels boring and how to fix it at any stage in the process. If you have any other tips that help you troubleshoot boring photos, let me know down in the comments below so we can make this a more rich discussion beyond my opinions. Hopefully this helps you, and I'll see you next time.